With the presentation of the Alumni Achievement Award, CIM recognizes those outstanding alumni who have provided significant professional contributions in the area of performance, composition, music theory, or pedagogy. This year's recipient is Katie Wyatt. In 2016, Katie Wyatt became the first executive director of Sistema USA, the national network that supports Sistema in this country. Sistema is an international phenomenon of music for social change that began in Venezuela in the 1970s. Katie's 2005 performances with the Youth Orchestra of the Americas and the Simon Bolivar Orchestra of Venezuela, under the baton of Gustavo Dudamel, ignited her passion and her career in social justice through the arts. It is my great honor to recognize her path to success. However, it was not as straight as this description makes it sound. After earning her master's degree in viola here, where she studied with Bob Vernon and Stanley Konopka, Katie taught viola at North Carolina State and served as director of education for the North Carolina Symphony before co-founding Kids Notes, a Raleigh-Durham nonprofit with a mission to change the life trajectory of underserved kids through orchestral training. Over 7 years, she and her team grew Kids Notes from serving 60 students to 500 students. Katie was selected twice for Musical America's 30 Under 40 Awards, is a Goodman Fellow through Leadership Triangle, teaches social entrepreneurship at Duke University, and performs regularly with chamber groups and orchestras across North Carolina. I'm also happy to say that Katie also gives back to current CIM students. She presented a day of workshops and personal coachings earlier this spring under the auspices of the CIM's Center for Innovative Musicianship, known as CIM Squared. It is now my great honor to recognize and present the 2018 Cleveland Institute of Music Alumni Achievement Award to Katie Wyatt. Please join me in congratulating Katie and welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In the South, then you say good afternoon. Thank you so much to Paul Hogel for the invitation to speak with you today, and congratulations to all of our upcoming graduates. My name is Katie Wyatt, and I am a member of a movement. This is a movement of thousands of people from across the world who have taken up violins instead of arms. We're in a movement, and we are protesting for the protection of the rights of all people, no matter their social or economic circumstances. We're protecting their right to know beauty, to have a wellspring of joy always inside of them, to be captivated and to know wonder, and to be able to struggle together for something that they believe in. In this movement, we are using music in an intense and daily practice to establish and protect these rights. The name of this movement is El Sistema, the system. You heard I first experienced El Sistema in 2005 as a violist under the baton of Gustavo Dudamel, who is of course the most famous graduate of the orchestras of El Sistema Venezuela. I was part of a touring festival called the Youth Orchestra of the Americas, and this was a group of young people who had been brought together from all over North and South America. We'd been brought together to get to know one another, to learn, to party a little, and of course, to play music. The goal was to come out of the program with different ideas and instincts when we read or heard about the guerrillas in Colombia. It was while I was there that I learned about the disappeared in Argentina for the first time, and that when my friends from Latin America were taught the continents as children, they're taught that there are only 6 continents, not 7. For them, North and South America is simply America. When we arrived in Venezuela, there was another audition for seating in the orchestra. I had just finished my graduate degree in viola performance here at CIM, for which I paid a lot of money. And I was playing with the New World Symphony in Miami, and I had just taken the Detroit Symphony audition. I was doing pretty well. I get to Venezuela, and I thought, surely, I'll be principal. I go to the bulletin board the next day, where they've posted all of our names of where we'll all be sitting, just like in high school. And there was a Venezuelan in every principal chair. I was 25. These Venezuelans were 17 to 19 years old. I thought, well, okay, I started private lessons when I was 10. These Venezuelans must have started when they were 3 or 4 years old. This must be the oil money at work that I've heard so much about. These musicians, instead, were part of a movement of orchestras for children and families in poverty. These kids had grown up in the barrios across Venezuela, and they had been part of something called El Sistema. In case you haven't heard of El Sistema, or you feel like you know what El Sistema is, but you're not entirely sure what it is, let me help you fill in the blanks. As you heard, it's the international movement of music for social change that started in a parking garage in Venezuela in the 1970s. Maestro Jose Antonio Abreu was an economist, pianist, composer, and conductor. He spent some time as the Minister of Culture of Venezuela, and when it's asked to consider solutions for the desperate poverty ravaging his country. And instead of implementing a welfare or a jobs program, Maestro Abreu, one hot afternoon, set up 100 chairs with 50 music stands and 100 instruments on every chair in a cement parking garage in the middle of the Caracas barrios. The first day, 12 kids came, which grew to 20 kids the next day, which grew to hundreds over time. Those hundreds grew to thousands across the country, and now over 2 million over the world. We got to hear some this afternoon from El Sistema Rainy, your Sistema program here in Cleveland. So back to the summer of 2005 in Venezuela, where after a month and a half of touring together as an orchestra, we gave our final performance in Rosario, Argentina. From my chair in the viola section, as the music pulsed around me, I looked out onto a sea of completely brown faces. Until that moment, really every symphony orchestra concert I had ever performed in, the audience was almost always white, European faces. Classical music is a European art form, right? Well, not that night, not in Rosario, Argentina. As I was looking out on them, I was struck. These are my people. They get me, they love what I love. That music, created by hundreds of us on stage and heard by hundreds in the audience, was what we had in common. Through our act of performing, through unspoken communication, we established a playing field for empathy. Without saying a word, in making music, you and I must agree to struggle together to accomplish something bigger than ourselves. Maestro Abreu says that the orchestra is the only community where the essential and exclusive feature is to come together with the fundamental objective of agreeing with itself. And to agree on what? To create beauty. I returned to Venezuela in the spring of 2010 as part of a 5-year project established by Maestro Abreu when he won the International TED Prize. My job as an Abreu Fellow was to research the fundamentals of El Sistema and to prepare to start a program in Durham, North Carolina when I got back. I had so many questions about how to begin my model of El Sistema. How many kids? How many days? How many instruments? How much money will we need? To this, most of the Venezuelans would just put up their hands and pat me and say, "Tranquilo, flaca." Chill out, skinny lady. No one in Venezuela would tell me that this was the way, that this is the best way that you can start. Instead, they insisted that the very best way that they could help me, and what was most important about my model, is just that I start immediately, like while on Skype, while still in Venezuela. At that moment, I realized the essence of the motto of El Sistema, tocar y luchar, to play and to strive. It is not about the beginning with the end in mind. Sometimes it is simply about beginning. I share with you all of this, graduates, because I am in awe of your talent and potential. I'm sure this has always been the case, but I have certainly joined the ranks of the seasoned musician, being blown away by how young the next generation of audition and job winners are. I am in awe of your demand for excellence, of your confidence that we can do better. Don't ever give that up. And I want to invite you to open your eyes to the talent and potential everywhere in unexpected parts of society. Upon my return from Venezuela, I founded Kids Notes in Durham, North Carolina. And prior to Kids Notes, children from East Durham were considered problems to solve and victims of poverty, as opposed to the talent and future resource that Durham needs. 7 years later, these students are now looked to as leaders in their classrooms, and they are the bright young youth of Durham. And I remember, not in this hall because this is much nicer than when I was at Cleveland Institute, but I remember being in your seats 14 years ago, and I am really excited to flip back at you now, this horrifying question that sent me careening into my locker downstairs during the last week of school, which is, so what are you going to do now? What's next for you? Don't worry, there's a happy ending here. For so many of us, all of our lives, we have simply done the next thing. We got into college for music, so now we're auditioning for grad schools. Or we're taking a year off. Or we took the very first job we were offered because, good Lord, it would be really nice to be actually making some money instead of bleeding it. All of these are great options because you know what? You've started. You've taken the first step. You've made a decision that you're going to direct your life instead of follow it. Some of you have maybe heard the story already, but for those that haven't, I think it speaks to the internal voice in all of the driven musicians in the room. When I returned from Venezuela, I called my teacher at that time, who was Bob Vernon, to let him know of my decision. And this is after I had told my parents of my change in career. And while they were extremely supportive, there was a nagging voice in the back of my head that just kept asking, then why on earth did they pay for all those lessons? Mr. Vernon picked up, and before I could get very far, I was in tears. I felt I must be such a disappointment to him, having worked my tail off on my viola, only to have an experience in Venezuela, and now a fire in my belly to change the face of poverty in this country. I thought I had wasted his time. After listening to me cry, as all great teachers do, he had something to tell me I'll never forget. He said, Katie, this is the moment we have been preparing for. This is exactly it. All of your focus, hard work, dedication, sacrifices have all led to this moment. Seize it. You're ready. If I can offer any advice that has served me well since I graduated from CIM, it is to follow the paths that seem to appear and unfold in front of you. They are unfolding for a reason. These are the paths that are a phone call or email from a teacher or a friend from your past, or from someone new who suddenly has an opportunity available for you exactly when you happen to be free, or in a foreign country where your mind is blown. These are the moments of opportunity that are meeting you right now at your current peak of preparation. These are the paths that most often lead to success, fulfillment, and satisfaction. With great talent comes great responsibility. Have you thought about who you are going to bring with you? Who will you invite to the table as you have been invited? As you have been encouraged, who will you in turn encourage to think beyond what's immediately in front of them? You have a lot of choices to make now and a lot of options in front of you. And I've shared with you a slice of the vast pool of talent and potential outside of these halls, in the places and people you would least expect. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Music has given you the perfect language and the perfect invitation. It is your moment to play and to strive. Tocar y luchar. Congratulations.